Walrus magazine is reproducing Joanne Todd's project, O Canada Lament, as a multi-page pullout in the July-August issue of the magazine. I think that the aim was to try to personify what was happening in the war, even with the way that the people who come back are repatriated still seem a little bit abstract. So I think she really wanted to, as clearly and fully as possible, personify the casualties, to make them as fully human as possible.
I have painted all of the portraits of Canadian soldiers who've been killed in Afghanistan, and at this date I have everyone painted. It was inspired by a personal incident in my life, which was I became the beneficiary of a lot of letters from my late uncle, James Todd, who was my father's brother. My family was very distraught when my uncle was killed eventually in the Second World War. And so when I knew this, having read some of his letters, I thought I want to honor our soldiers and their families as well. This project, first and foremost, is about honoring the Canadian soldiers that we've lost in Afghanistan. It's also about creating contemporary art using subject matter that is not usually dealt with in contemporary art.
I originally came across Joanne's work in the early 80s, and right from that point on it was clear Joanne was just a stellar painter. Her material, her subject matter was rich, intriguing, and extremely intelligent. She had a wonderful way of interpreting popular culture and making a sort of a critical commentary at the same time as making beautiful, beautiful paintings. She's continued to paint as a gallery artist, but she's also taken on an important role as a portrait painter, all of which combined, she's really talking about our history as it unfolds.
Each portrait is painted on a 6-inch by 5-inch birch panel. The installation also includes other panels that are painted to resemble a fractured Canadian flag.
By painting them, there's a shift that happens that makes the piece and that figure become permanent. And I think that's a really valuable point about her work, is that shift. Even though she's using a photorealism style of painting, by changing it to a painting from a photograph, this timeless frame starts to be part of the work.
As you can see, the installation is irregularly shaped, and that is partly because every place I install it, it's a different venue, and it's adaptable because it is modular. It also implies that it's not finished. To date, I have painted all of the soldiers, which is 155, as well as one Canadian diplomat. The installation has the same basic structure, like one would read a page. It starts at the upper left, goes to the right, and then drops a line and goes from the left to the right again. It's not exactly straight. It does have some variations in the lines, but essentially that's the way we read it in chronological order. The chronological order also refers to the earliest deaths going on in time to the latest. Although each of these portraits is intended to individually honor and reflect upon the person depicted, it's also part of a larger installation, as it were, that includes all of the troops. So I see it as a one piece, not as individual portraits so much.
What this piece is doing that you can never experience in any other way is she's bringing the 150 or more soldiers that have served for us into one place. There's no point when you actually can kind of look at them all and see sort of the impact that the war in Afghanistan has caused Canadians, except when you're looking at Joanne's piece. This is one time when we actually will have a moment to contemplate on these individuals. On that level, I think this is an extremely important piece.
It represents a positive and a negative element. The positive is the actual celebration and enjoyment of our fallen soldiers and honoring them in this way by creating a portrait that represents something about their personality. And perhaps the not so positive element here is the idea of the lament, O Canada, a lament, which is encapsulated in the form of the Canadian flag, which is fractured and sort of tattered almost. A reminder that even with the best national intentions, war can be a destructive force. It was surprising to me, even painting them one by one, that it would have such impact as a grouping. People weep. I have often had people crying, and it's very affecting. As you can see, looking at the portraits, there's all sorts of different individuals depicted, and the different ranks, different regiments, ages, sex, races. It's a shame. It just goes to show you that war does not discriminate.
It seemed like a natural fit for us because we had done a lot of coverage on the war in Afghanistan from a Canadian perspective, and because our mission was scheduled to end in July this year, we felt that this would be an excellent way to mark the mission as a whole. We're trying to make it as simple and plain as possible because this is one of the many instances where the content is much bigger than the frame you put around it. We're going to bind it into the magazine, so it'll be its own signature, and then it'll physically fold out, so that physically it'll be quite a dramatic break from the rest of the magazine. You'll be going along, you come to the first page, and you open it out, and it'll just keep going and going and going. And in many ways, that's a little bit of a statement about the war. We were in there for a very long time, and our soldiers did an awful lot, but the sacrifices just kept coming and coming and coming. The thing that I find most striking about this project is you really feel Joanne connecting more and more deeply with the individuals, and you cannot help but not feel how incredibly sad the sacrifice is. I mean, this is Remembrance Day in a very close-up manner. These people have just passed away. They're not our grandfathers or our great-grandfathers. They're our neighbors.